let's have a look at herb rubber. Most of you are probably going to recognise this as a garden weed. Have you got it growing in your garden? You know, like in the cracks down the side of paths, in stone walls, in patios, and all the like little corners and crevices. I used to find a lot of it as a kid. It was everywhere. It still is, because it self-seeds prolifically. And I'm trying to remember why. But I just found one of my kids' hair wrapped up in some of this bit. I've just asked this bit to be picked for this video, and I've just found my kid's hair in it. That's pretty random. So some of you, yeah, I called it dolly mixtures when I was a kid. You might remember it from being a kid, just because of the scent. It's got a very strong kind of scent to it, which isn't for everyone. I'm just going to sit here sniffing it now. It's not for everyone, but it has got a very strong scent to it. And yeah, I used to call it dolly mixtures when I was a kid, and I don't actually know why I called it that. I wondered what that was then. There was like this massive build-up of rain on the top of the polytunnel that just swooped down. Wow, that's so cool. But yeah, herb robber, a lot of people see it as a weed, and I have been guilty of that myself. But I've really reconnected with this plant. I'm going to stop waving around now. You can't quite see on this one, but there's like, yeah, there's a flower. There's your flower. I've really reconnected with this plant just really recently, actually, because I was just sort of talking about my ancestral connections to plants, and you know how so many of us will have had ancestors who used day-to-day plants in your locality, in their locality, as medicine and for healing. And it was just something that them did. A lot of them were women, but not all of them. So yeah, on a personal level, I'll have to start shouting now because it's really, really raining. On a personal level, herb robber I feel very connected to, because it does remind me so much of childhood. The smell of it reminds me so much of being a child, and just kind of scrabbling about in the corners in the garden. Particular walk I used to like where there was a waterfall and there was tons of it growing, you know. So it was just really in that locality where I was and where I grew up, which was the same village that my great-grandmother was from, that we've moved back to. So there was definitely a connection there. So to me, this plant, yeah, it has that kind of ancestral connection for me. And I believe that if you look up the kind of correspondences of herb robber, it is very much a herb of the threshold, a herb of the liminal kind of space, you know, that we talk about. I talk about it from the perspective of life transitions, but you know, just that liminal space of between the worlds. It's very, I find it a plant that's very between sort of our everyday reality and the reality that maybe we can't perceive as human beings. It's a plant that kind of spans both of those two different places. It's a plant of the in-between, and I think that's why we find it a lot in between places, like cracks in concrete and walls and shaded areas, and those places that are a little bit sort of not here and not there. And I see the ancestral connection in this as well. When we look at, you know, not all of them are actually blood red. Some of them, you know, some of the newer growth, you'll have the green stems, but this one I got because it has got the nice blood red stem. And it does look like it is, you know, full of blood from that colour, and it also changes colour as well. Different shades, and that reminds me of like the bloodline, you know, the physical bloodline, the ancestral bloodline, those who came before us, and the knowledge that they can pass on to us, whether it was, you know, written down and recorded or it was spoken, or maybe it's a deeper knowing that we don't actually have written or physical access to, but we have it in the knowing and the wisdom of our own bodies because it's been passed down through our DNA. And I think this is an annual plant as well, but it does, self-seed a lot. So you'll find, however much you're pulling it up, it's still coming back again. Which again speaks to me of the cycles of like death and rebirth. It's like a plant that's very aware of its own expiry date, and it has evolved to self-seed very well so that there is always a rebirth. So yeah, I'm looking forward to actually sitting properly with this plant because I haven't done I've sat with it for say 5 minutes or so, but I'm intending to go a little bit deeper with this one because for me it does have a lot of sort of my childhood locked into it, and I'm interested on how to unlock that because I think for me personally, working with this plant, because it's so strongly tied to childhood for me, I feel like a lot of the beliefs and narratives about myself and even wounds from childhood that are maybe holding me back right now, I think through working with this plant I can start to unlock those and maybe bring them out for examination and review and alchemize, see what we can alchemize there. And I think that is why this plant is speaking so strongly to me at this time. And you might notice that yourself in your own life. You'll suddenly become really interested in one particular plant and you don't know why. You're just suddenly really drawn to it, and it can often be because that maybe you're at a certain point in your life, or you've got to a certain place now where something is ready to alchemize, and this plant steps forward, as a kind of ally to help you through that. And that can be, a really interesting beginning of a really interesting relationship. So if you are in that kind of liminal space yourself right now, you might want to try, so many people have this in the garden, you might want to try sitting with this one. If you want more ideas about a couple of other plants that are really good to sit with and maybe just start working with, or have just even in tea or tinctures, but just to start connecting with, then I've got a couple of suggestions in my free ebook and audio, which is called The Style, and I will pop the link in the description below. And we'll just talk a little bit about 3 plants in there. I think it's wild rose, obviously, hawthorn and lemon balm, and how they can support you. So they're a really good starting place. Otherwise, yeah, if anyone else has kind of sat with Herb Robert or has had any insights from this herb, I would be really interested to know how you found it. And I will probably do a little bit of an update on Substack in the coming months when I've had a bit more time to sit with it a little bit longer and see what messages it has for me. But off the top of my head and the short sits I've done so far with it, that's kind of what's coming up for me. A lot of link back to childhood and ancestral patterning coming up, so it could be an exciting few months sitting with that herb. But yeah, if you've worked before, let me know your thoughts. Otherwise, I'll see you soon for the next video.